Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money. With your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 779 of Screw the Commute podcast. I'm here all the way from London with Saeed El Jammal. I met him on another podcast and we had a blast on that thing. We'll tell you about that in a minute. Hope you didn't miss episode 778. That was Jay Agner. He started a software testing company in his basement, took it currently $2 million a year, and he's got all kinds of hobbies. It's really lifestyle business, which is what I love. So anytime you want to get to a back episode, you go to screwthecommute.com/ and then the episode number. His was 778. Also, pick up a copy of our automation ebook. Just one of the tips in this book, we actually estimated it to save me 8 million keystrokes. I want you spending time with your prospects and customers and creating products and services, not fighting with your computer. So grab a copy of that ebook at screwthecommute.com/automate free. Follow me at Digital Multimillionaire on TikTok. And grab a copy of our podcast app. It's now in the App Store. It's iOS only at this point, but we're going to have Android out pretty soon at screwthecommute.com/app. That's APP. All right, let's get to the main event. Saeed El Jammal is a dynamic podcaster with a passion for humanitarian work and global affairs. He's an ex-Red Cross volunteer. We're going to talk about that more in depth later. And he brings a wealth of experience and empathy to his thought-provoking discussions. He's got a bachelor's degree in politics and international law and a master's in politics, conflicts, rights, and justice from the School of Oriental and African Studies. I'm pretty sure that's what SOAS is. And boy, we could use him here with all the conflicts in politics, that's for sure, right here. He offers insightful perspectives on current issues, and as a co-host of a top 10% podcast, he skillfully combines education and entertainment, engaging audiences worldwide. Saeed, are you ready to screw?
Oh, hell yeah,
the
Tom.
Commute.
It's great. I'm just down and ready to start whenever you're
That's
ready.
Great. That's great, man. So we had a blast on your podcast. Tell them a little bit about A2.
Oh, thank you. Well, A2 is basically a podcast where me and my co-host, we were just like two curious guys. He started it off with someone else at first, and then I joined in from the beginning, and we were just like two curious young men trying to find out more about the world. And we also like to travel. So what way better to do it than through a virtual podcast? And so now we've traveled almost 90 countries, and we just keep going, trying to find more people from around the world and try to learn from their experiences. And what's better than to learn from other people, the other people's mistakes, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And we had a lot of fun. So it's I don't know, do you call it A2 or A squared or what's the actual how do you call it?
So we usually just say A2 the show, but because the A2 represents for like 2 A's, so you can also say A squared, but A2 is just usually the easier one to say.
And isn't there a website that goes with it?
Yes, also a2theshow.com. But I think you can also look A squared the show.com as well, and you will get the same URL.
There you go. Mm-hmm. There you go. And now IMDb. Now we had a lot of fun on the podcast, but I was watching one of your other episodes today, actually. Mm-hmm. And you were pretty serious on that episode, but IMDb calls you the undiscovered comedy writer. Did you know that?
Yeah. So I think what I try to do is create a certain type of balance for myself. I do write a lot of I like to write of the things that I see in life in general, whatever I encounter, if it's funny or if it's like inspirational or if it's something that I could create a good habit out of it for myself, I'll write it down. It first started off with with writing in general, because I used to like writing a lot when I was a kid, when I was in university, growing up in general. Just like I had the creative knack for just creating stories in a sense. And then I switched it more into comedy because I just liked funny things as well. I just used humor as a type of maybe I use it as an escape. I don't know, but it was good for like interacting for social situations. Humor can always break the tension and like make people feel comfortable. So I started writing as well.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
But now, where are you from, actually?
So I'm originally from Lebanon.
Lebanon.
Yes.
Okay. And now you just said something about escape from reality or escape from the, when you were doing
Yeah.
the talk about your comedy. Well, it seems like you might have had to escape from Lebanon because I saw that you had to, you were conducting research on the history of corruption in the Lebanese government.
That is true. Yeah. So in one of my internships during my bachelor's degree, I was basically given this task where I had to conduct a full review of all of the governments since the birth of Lebanon as an independent state.
All right, but when you got this assignment, were you like looking over your shoulder a little bit, like, uh-oh?
I think the people who assigned it to me were also corrupt in their own way, so possibly.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I didn't want to like obviously write anything that could put me in trouble or anything, but it was just research, so there wasn't
Okay.
any danger at that time. I think my thesis and my master's was more putting me in a danger zone.
Oh, what was that?
So my thesis on my master's was I was writing on the evolution of Hezbollah's identity. And
Oh my goodness.
yeah, I don't know if you've heard of Hezbollah, but they are
Yes.
so they are originally they started off as a resistance group to the Israeli occupation in Lebanon during the civil war. And after that, they developed into like a militia, and then they joined the politics, became a political party, and they still have their army, obviously. But they created so many different identities that now that when you look at them, you don't see like a fragmented entity. You see like a well-constructed organization that, in
Wow.
my opinion, is actually the like ruler of Lebanon.
Oh,
Sorry, de
wow.
facto. I think that's the correct term. I might have used the wrong term.
Yeah. Just remind me never to, if I visit London, never to like stand by you.
Yeah, you don't want to see the laser pointer pointed at your head, right?
Yeah, or somebody shoots at you and misses, and it's me. so,
Yeah.
so let's talk about a very interesting thing that I think will be of interest to our listeners here, about just taking a hold. I mean, without necessarily having training, with doing right by people. Or I can't wait to hear how you did this, but you were thrust into a leadership role, leading 250 people, and you had no training in leadership.
Yeah.
So how did this occur? Tell us all about that whole story.
So the thing is, the branch that I was volunteering with,
this was the Red Cross, right? Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, exactly. The branch I was volunteering with was going through some changes in management.
And what's AUB stand for?
Sorry?
AUB branch.
So AUB is the name of my university. So it's American University of Beirut.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's an American university. There's a lot of like American influence in the university, obviously from the name. And but that's besides the point. So there was a lot of changes going on within management because there was a lot of disagreements going on with the committee that was managing this branch and basically the hierarchy of Red Cross. And when I was applying, I didn't apply for the president role. I was actually applying for the vice president role. So the only person who was applying for the president role did not really fit the bill of basically the hierarchy of Red Cross. So instead, they said they would take the risk on me. And obviously, at the time, like I was completely inexperienced and I didn't know what was going on, but I didn't want to back down. I thought like this was probably my chance to, prove myself and see what I can do.
Well, let me ask you, did they ask you to lay off a little of the corruption writing stuff?
The corruption writing actually came after this, so they didn't have to
okay.
deal with
All
it.
right. I didn't think the Red Cross, all into that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it was an interesting situation for me because this is obviously something very new for me, and I didn't really expect it. And the previous president was actually a type of mentor for me. And ever since I stepped into this role as the president, it was just like I really understood what it is to be like a leader because I just was encountering challenges after challenges after challenges every single month of of that whole year. It was just literally 1 year, it's a short term of being president of that branch. But the amount of challenges that you have to face while you're being a leader just is overwhelming at some point. And it was an experience that I will not regret ever in my life. I really enjoyed it, even though it put me through so much. I really feel like I learned so much from it, and I can definitely go into the details.
I thought presidents just got 10, 15 million a year and just play golf.
I don't know how the US presidents do it, but as a volunteer, it doesn't work that way. We don't get paid.
So you were president and did not get paid.
Yep.
But you led 250 people. Now, how did you come up? You're a natural? How did you come up with the skills to manage 250 people?
So the thing is, I was already a volunteer in the same branch before becoming president. I think it was like 3 or 2 years at least. So I already had an understanding of how most of the people who were volunteers, like how they thought and how the whole system worked. And then for the new recruits, I was mainly involved in the recruitment campaign. So I was able to leave an impression on them. And what I did was I stayed as myself. Because as a leader, I really believe that the people have to obviously see you as a leader, but they also have to see you as a person. Because if you're just like constantly being this overruling kind of person, the people will not be able to actually follow you because they don't really understand how you think. So what I was doing was making the decisions and then obviously giving orders. But at certain times when I am interacting with the members, I would have to, well, not have to, this was just my natural self. I would joke around, I'd be friendly with them, I'd try to hang out with some of them even. And I really feel like that's what a leadership role should include. You have to create a certain balance between the people with the people that you work with, and obviously giving them the orders and instructions to follow.
And you said that's your natural temperament anyway, right?
Yeah, I'm a pretty outgoing person, and I really feel like that helps, especially when people want to listen to me.
Well, this is so prescient. This is like deja vu all over again because I just watched that Ali guy from the show tell you to be yourself, and you were already doing it.
Yeah.
People don't know what we're talking about, but I just saw one of the other people on his other show has left, and he was giving this advice to people that were still there.
Yeah, I think his advice was a bit late because I was already starting the transition.
Yeah, exactly. I can't wait for there was a playful rival between those other two guys on that podcast, and they were talking about having an MMA fight to the death or something. I don't know what it was.
No holds barred, all out. Yeah. And bare knuckle as well. They were saying bare knuckle.
Of course, they live in different countries. I don't know where is the other Ali now? Where's he at?
So one of them is currently in LA, and the other one is between Kuwait and Jordan.
Between Kuwait and Jordan, is there some place in between?
No,
he lives.
Yeah, so he mainly studies in Jordan for his med school, but he's originally from Kuwait, and he goes back there whenever he has free time.
Okay, beautiful. But, yeah, so I can't wait to hear the name of his new show that he wouldn't say on the.
Yeah, that was a bit of a bomb. I'm not gonna lie. When he dropped it on that, I was just like, okay, this is interesting. And
yeah, I saw you sitting against the wall like somebody had just flashed you or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, for that episode, actually, the reason why I was pretty serious during that episode was it wasn't the first time we heard this from him. So yeah, what
Okay.
happened was there was a non-recorded event where he actually just showed up when me and the other Ali were just having a meeting, we're just talking, and then he showed up and he told us his decision. In that in that non-recorded content, I was actually tearing up. Yeah,
Wow.
like I was really surprised at the
So from
decision.
happiness.
No, I was just like I was more tearing up on like how mature he sounded when he made the decision. Like the fact that he made this decision by himself without anyone telling him, you know? Like
And he showed up and stood there and even on that hour-long recorded session, um, you know, laid it out. He didn't hide from you guys
yeah, exactly. And
like that other guy, George. I don't even know who the other guy was you were mentioning on there. Yeah, George somebody.
yeah.
See,
Oh,
I wish I'd have known that you could eat on your show because Paco showed up and was eating some kind of giant
to be honest,
burrito or something.
Paco is an exceptional person. I will leave it at that because he sometimes just shows up and he makes like an interesting cameo for our podcast
Right?
whenever he
Yeah,
shows.
yeah, yeah. Is what language does he speak? Because sometimes I didn't understand what he was saying,
So we all
or was
speak
that just he
Arabic
had a
as
mouthful?
our primary language, and we learned
All of you.
and we learned
Okay.
English in school. So sometimes, and in Lebanon, what we do is we have this thing where we just like transition between languages as we're speaking at the same time. So
Oh, that's what it was. It was like I didn't. I'm like, what did he just say? I'm thinking to
yeah,
myself.
exactly. So and we call that Arabic because it's just like you're at some point you're speaking English and in one sentence, and then out of the 8 words that you say in that sentence, maybe 3 of them are Arabic. And the thing is, we understand each other clearly.
Right, right, right. Well, we had like Spanglish over here, and what would that be like, Labanglish or something?
Yeah, true, true. And we also do that with French. So because in Lebanon, Lebanon used to be what's it called, under the French mandate
Hmm. Hmm.
before, like after World War II. Um, and we also were obviously taught French by the French government, and it's still part of the country. It's like the third language there. So a lot of people, you have a large community that does speak French as well. So they also mix Arabic, English, French. It gets confusing sometimes.
Well, I tell you, I remember when I had my nightclub, a guy would come in at the bar who had been in the service, and he was just almost upset when he talked about Beirut. He'd say that, man, it was one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and they just bombed the crap out of it, and tore it up. And he was saying it was just a shame that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, that is true. The thing is, whenever someone says when they talk about Beirut, like in a like they're a bit sad or upset
Hmm.
about what happened, I could try to change the narrative about it, because even though what happened really like affected the country and it traumatized a lot of people within the nation, if you go to it now, you can still see like the same level of hospitality from the people, the same amount
Hmm.
of fun that you could have had even before the explosion, the same like experience. It's just all there. The great nature, the great beaches, the great nightlife, the great food, the great people. It's all still there. No matter what, Lebanese people always find a way to just like keep going. I don't know how, I really don't. And but sometimes I see it in myself as well. It's just like I feel like we're just taught to just keep moving forward. And I really
How
find that
long were you
beautiful.
were you there most of your life, or was a child, or what?
So I was there for 10 to 11 years, and
Hmm.
I left there, maybe it's been almost 2 years now since I left. I was there during the explosion. So
Oh
yeah,
wow,
I did
wow,
witness the whole thing.
yeah. Wow. And now you're in London.
Hmm.
And can you see the London Eye from your flat?
Oh, hell no. This is like there's too many obstacles in the way. London is very compact and there's a lot of obstacles blocking the way. So it's
I've only, I've only been there once, but see, I have the longest running, continuous running internet and digital marketing seminar.
yeah.
And it's called Butt Camp because I'm sitting on my rear end making all this money, so I didn't want to call it boot camp. So, but in London, they made me call it bum camp instead of butt camp.
Yeah. They don't use the word but, which is interesting. Like, the terminology really makes a difference.
Yeah.
That's actually an important thing, I think, in leadership, like the way you use your terms. And
Okay, tell us about that.
it's just interesting. Like, when some people use like, let's say SAT words just to sound smart or sound,
Right.
interesting. I feel like as a leader, if you use the right words in your speeches or like in when you're explaining something to your employees or whoever you're interacting with, using the right terminology really has an influence on how people will react to you. And especially in sales as well. And I'm pretty sure a lot of salesmen always like to study what words they want to use in their closing calls, in their closing speeches, whatever like fixed sentences they have prepared for themselves. Using the right words really makes a difference.
Well, yeah, because if you just use your own ego and want to make yourself sound smart,
Yes,
you're just making other people feel dumb and disconnecting with them.
exactly. And you don't want that. You want to find a way to connect them to you. You want them to listen to you and also understand you at the same time. So you don't want to use terms that will just be like confuse the individual. You want to use terms that can connect them to you and just like make them feel like a certain type of warmth that you are trying to unite them with your mindset.
And even if you know those words, those high level words, and you're in a situation where most people don't,
Mm-hmm.
it's you're better off. I don't want to say coming down to their level, but being at their level rather than trying to look like you're above their level.
100%. 100%. It really varies from individual to individual. So you kind of have to understand from the brief conversation or brief few interactions you have with an individual, what kind of interaction or what kind of way you want to progress in the conversation with them. So let's say a highly educated person, he or she would prefer to use like if you use larger words, let's say you did your research on SAT words and you actually study them and practice them, they will be impressed and they will actually want to listen to you because they will feel like you are an educated person and you can connect to them. While someone who is not as highly educated, but that's not really obviously an important aspect of your interaction with the person. If someone is not as educated, these terms will mean nothing to them. So there's no point of using them when in those conversations. You kind of have to just use the flow of the conversation to your advantage.
And actually, a lot of times using those terms is a negative, not just a neutral, because I call it in my training a brain stopper.
Mm-hmm.
So you say a word that somebody doesn't understand, their brain stops, and then they miss the next 10 seconds of what you say. So it's more than just neutral where, you're wasting your time because they don't understand it. It can be a real negative because that it stops their brain to concentrate on that word that they don't understand, and then boom, you've lost them. So
That is very true.
So
That's very true because like
and
they're trying to process what you said.
right, exactly, process. That's the term, and voice inflection and are very powerful things, and facial expression. I mean, you can say you did a great job, or you can say, huh, you did a great job on that one. Yeah, you
That
see what
is
I mean?
exactly true. Yes, the tone
Yeah.
and the way your
Mm-hmm.
voice sounds really makes a difference. And I know there's this one person, he always pops up on my feed when I'm just like scrolling through. He's a I think he's like a consultant for using your voice as um, he does like a lot of consultations for like how to improve your voice so that you can become better at business, at sales, and being a better entrepreneur or leader. And the way he talks about using your voice is actually really impressive. And he also talks about that you have to practice different ways of how you want your voice to be amplified and how you want it to sound, especially when you're communicating with other people.
Yeah, and I teach you have to do it out loud because your lips don't always go where your mind is telling it if you just do it in your head all the time. So you have to go somewhere, where you're not going to look like a crazy person and then actually do the things out loud, and so that your lip memory or your muscle memory, can spit it out smoothly without thinking about it too much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been great. So how do they find you? And tell us again about the podcast where they can listen to the podcast.
Okay.
It's on YouTube and Apple and everywhere, right?
Yes. So the podcast is on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and even Anghami, which is like an Arabic Lebanese version of Spotify, which is also on NASDAQ now. So that's pretty cool.
Is it still in English or it's dubbed or what?
No, it is in English as well. All of our podcasts are mainly in English. If it is in Arabic,
at least part of them, because you kick in those Arabic words once in a while.
Yeah, some of them do have some of those Arabic words, but if you're watching it on YouTube, it's all dubbed, so you can watch with the subtitles.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah,
and it's either A2. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you can find us on A2 the show. So it's the digit 2 the show. The same thing applies for all of the platforms, and our website is the same, a2theshow.com or even a2theshow.com.
Beautiful. And you pick up a lot of leadership tips from Saeed, that's for sure. So thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Okie doke, folks. We will catch y'all in the next episode. See you later.